is dead.
Who do you think has the best chance to survive? Now, the Pac-12 has just had a shot across the bow. They got a big hole in their up front in their ship. Who has the best chance to survive?
I mean, I think of the three that aren't super.
Pac-12 and Big Ten. Pac-12 and Big 12.
The Big 12 does. The Big 12 buoyed their league last year. And here's the biggest difference look, Los Angeles, depending on population fluctuation, is a top 3 TV market, media market, and all that. It's a hub for a lot of different things. And it's also a market that probably in the Pac-12 cares middle most about college sports, if not lower to the bottom when they talk about fan interest, because all this happened last Thursday and none of the sports talk stations in LA really talked about it at all, as if it was just like, oh, hey, this is happening. By the way, Freddie Freeman went 1 for 4 last night, and let's talk about that for 45 minutes, because that's what they do there. So you've got a big hole to fill that, yes, Texas and Oklahoma were huge brands that left, but it didn't put a gap in the media markets necessarily, because the Big 12 was already kind of set up as the conference of Middle America. So
I think I've made it very clear the Big 12 is in a better spot in my eyes, and that's not being a homer. That's just looking at the Pac-12 minus USC and UCLA suddenly, and the fact that they were, even with those teams, on a little bit shaky ground, and their television future was going to be a little bit uncertain, not in terms of having a television future, but what those figures were going to look like. And if those figures were going to be really great, do you think that those 2 LA schools would be leaving right now? No. But now, if they had given a little more of a heads up, is there a way they could have negotiated? I know a lot of people talking about, let's get Notre Dame to this conference by giving them a larger share than everybody else. Maybe they could have negotiated that in the Pac-12 where, hey, LA schools, you get another percentage because, let's face it, you kind of carry the deal. They could have made some concessions possibly, but I don't know. I mean, the USC and UCLA bolting the way that they did, even though with USC there was some scuttlebutt about that. Ever since OU and Texas in particular, there's been scuttlebutt about schools like that, about the ACC programs and what their future holds. Clemson going to the SEC one day, for example. All that expansion kind of rumor mill stuff has been around for a while, but I mean, to actually see it happen was pretty crazy. And yes, to see the Pac-12 with Oregon and Washington now as their top brands, and those two certainly have to be looking around, and they're looking around, looking for a life raft from the Big Ten or from the SEC for that matter. I mean, yeah, clearly the Big 12 is on better ground. But having said that, if they get some combination that's not Oregon and Washington included, and it's the 4 of Utah and the Arizona schools and Colorado, okay, like that. I mean, I'll be honest, that does not really excite me all that much. Utah, I know BYU fans don't want to hear this, but that's the strongest of those 4. Arizona, basketball-wise, cool. Outside of that, Arizona State as a whole, I mean, I'm just being honest with you.
Well, but here's the thing. One of the things the Big 12 has done is with some schools that may not carry the markets they're close to, like UCF is Orlando, right? Houston is Houston. And then you have Arizona and Arizona State. Basically, that's Tempe, Scottsdale, Phoenix, and then also Tucson. What I'm saying is that's been kind of how they've added, but that's not going to move the needle too much. But you'd rather add them than not. If
right, but I'm not done with my point yet.
But I wanted to bring up the larger markets that some of them are attached to.
Yeah, but it's also like saying, like, you get Fort Worth if you get TCU. And it's
no, that's not what I'm saying.
Sort of, kind of.
What I'm comparing it to, and I agree, is I'm comparing it to UCF does not carry Tampa.
Right.
But that's
but it's
kind
not about
what they've done.
The market just solely necessarily. I mean, it's also about how much value are you bringing? Like, what are you bringing to the table? You can't just say, well, we're in Phoenix. Okay, and you bring with you what? What share of the market? How many fans? Like, there's more questions than just, hey, they're in a city that's big in the top 50. I just think it's more complicated than that. But what I was getting at was, if you get those 4, cool. Like, I have nothing against those teams, but it's not something that, like, I mean, it's not OU and Texas joining the conference. It's not USC and UCLA joining the conference. It's cool, and it makes the Big 12 somewhat stronger. You add Oregon and Washington to that mix. It still doesn't put you on par with the other 2, but it puts you a little closer, and it does, I think, up your value a little bit. So I would be, I think, excited sort of to see the 6 come over from the Pac-12, but beyond that, I mean, it's kind of wait and see as far as I'm concerned.
From Daryl.